So, Jill, here we are on the other side of a technical malfunction from Facebook, and I appreciate your patience in helping me sort it out. So, we're going to upload this later live. For those of you who are seeing it live later on, I'd like to introduce Jill Whalen. Jill has been an entrepreneur, a businesswoman who's had a very long and successful career in the computer and cloud industry with SEO, etc. And a number of years ago, began to search for answers into health and into her own innate health and her own well-being and managing anxiety for the last 50 years. Her story is really inspiring, and now she spends her time writing and helping people and having conversations and generally living her life. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Jill, and I'll let Jill do the rest and explain who she is and where she's from and what she's about. Jill, if you wouldn't mind. Welcome.
Thanks, Billy. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for having me on today. I'm in illustrious company. I saw Judy's and Steve's videos yesterday, which were great. I mean, the last couple of days. So I'm Jill Whalen, as you said. Yeah, I mean, I wrote a book called Victim of Thought, Seen Through the Illusion of Anxiety. The interesting thing with that is, so it's a, it kind of tells about my story with having anxiety through my life, and then kind of not, and that doesn't mean that I don't ever get anxious, but in a different way. What I didn't even know that I had anxiety, so it's a little bit different than some people who've been on medication and things like that. I didn't really even know I had anxiety. To me, it was just life, like it was just normal, the way I felt. Everybody has a big buzzing bunch of noise in their heads and are afraid of what might be coming next around the corner for them is how it looked to me. So I didn't think much of it, and I had a successful life, a happy marriage, and 3 kids, and ups and downs throughout it all. But when I had what started on my journey was just deciding to lose weight. I had been not eating healthy and drinking too much, and somehow the process of losing weight pretty quickly, in 6 months I lost 25 pounds, which is what I wanted to do, but I became like a different person. And everyone would say, "What did you do with Jill?" which is the name of my blog. And I thought that was really interesting, how someone could go from being somebody who hated exercise and never touched a vegetable in their life to somebody who loved all those things. And how does who you are, your identity change like that? I thought it was really interesting, because we kind of, at least I always thought that my identity was something really fixed, really like solid, this thing, who I am, this is me, oh, I don't do that, oh, I do this. And seeing that how fluid it actually was, or how not solid it actually was so cool. And so I sort of started looking into that kind of thing, and that's how I ended up stumbling upon Michael Neal, who talked about similar kinds of things. And what I first really heard, the first real insight, was that thoughts create our feelings, is how I heard it at the time. And I didn't know what that meant. I was like, yeah, I get that. That's what you're saying. But what does that mean? And I didn't really know until I had, one night I made some dinner, and I told my husband it was ready, and he said, okay. And I didn't like the way he said, okay. I was like, I thought he said like, okay, or something. I don't know. And I had this whole story in my head. Is he mad at me? Does he want to go out? Does whatever, this whole story, the whole night, my whole night was ruined from one word. And the next day I was listening to some video where they were talking about how thoughts create feelings. I was like, oh my God, like I suddenly got it. That whole story from the night before came back into my head, and I said, that's what I did. That was all my thoughts. That's why I was miserable the whole night from one word. Like,
Mm.
one word can't create that. Something created it, and it was my own self, my own, just the thoughts that happened to be going through my head based on whatever meaning I was giving the one word,
Mm.
which was a lot more than okay. It meant a lot more to
Yeah.
me than that. Um, and so once I really saw that insight, had that insight, I started understanding, what Michael Neal was talking about, what other people were talking about, and really saw how thoughts create, not just feelings, it's our whole experience of life comes from inside of us, our, what's going on in our heads based on everything that's ever happened to us in our life, anything that
Mm.
people have ever said to us, and where we were born, and who our parents were, and the kind of life we lived. Like, it all forms all these beliefs and and conditioning inside of us, and that's what we see in the world. And after seeing all that, somehow, my mind just got quieter. I started, maybe even before this, I think, observing my thoughts throughout the day. Eckhart Tolle, I used to listen to him a lot, and he always said to do that. He said some, like, the most important thing you could do is just throughout the day, just like observe your thoughts. And I used to hear that and think, oh, that sounds like a good idea, but I never did it. But when I finally started doing it, that's what seemed to clear my mind a little bit. Like,
Mm.
it's like thoughts are like cockroaches. You shine a light on them and they scatter. And
Great way.
it's the same
Yeah.
with our thoughts. We
Mm.
shine awareness on them, and they scatter. And so my mind just became so much more quiet. Like, I didn't know that I had all those thoughts. That what I realized was that buzzing in my head that I was
Mhm.
talking about before, the anxiety, was just a big clump of thoughts coming at me. And when those started to subside, I realized, like, I just didn't feel that way anymore. I didn't feel bad. I wasn't worried about what would come around the corner. I was always a shy person, and so talking to other people was, kind of scary for me. But with with knowing that it's me creating my reality, my my experience, um I'm not a victim to circumstances.
Mm.
Like now, of course, today, this is, what, the end of March 2020. We've got this virus, quarantine stuff happening,
Mm.
and people are, of course, feeling like victims to this circumstance. And yet we can see so many, how there's 7 billion different reactions to it happening in the world. Each one of us has our own thoughts and feelings about it.
Mm.
And you can see it just looking at Facebook. You see so many different reactions to it. It's not like the virus creates this feeling in everybody, because we don't all feel that way. And somehow knowing that we're not victims that way, it gives us peace. We're able to connect more to our true inner peace, inner self, wisdom, guide, whatever you want to call it. We're able to connect to that more. And so the world becomes less of a scary place, because I always thought it was a bit of a scary place. I was happy as long as I was doing all my addictions. Um, as long as I could be on my computer all day and nobody would talk to me, I was good.
Mm.
But as soon as someone would seem to disturb my peace, need something from me, whatever, feed the kids, um, then it was like, oh, but seeing that was, that wasn't them disturbing my peace. It was just my thoughts based on everything in my life. And so in today's situation too, just the knowing of that, it makes it somehow easier, because anxiety is really just future thinking. It's the unknown. It's not knowing. And so of course this situation, I mean, how could we get any more unknown than this, right? We have no idea how any of this is going to play out. And it could go millions of different ways, and it probably will. There's, in different places in the world, it has already. And so it doesn't, like I can still find myself, if I start thinking about, just ruminating on all the bad things that could possibly happen. Yeah, I get anxious.
Mm-hmm.
I get anxious now as soon as I find myself doing that. But I also am aware of what I'm thinking. So if I do find myself getting there, I'll be like, wake up. There's no, there's no useful reason to do that. I mean, yes, we want to be prepared as much as we can, of course, and not just go out, if we're trying to stay away from other people. So, being sensible, of course, but
Common sense,
thinking
yeah.
about, but thinking about all the possible things that could happen is just silly to me. Like, I don't really want to feel, I don't want to feel that way. So instead, I mean, I'm generally curious to see how it will play out. Because there's so, we have already seen so much good stuff coming out of it, which is
Mm-hmm.
really interesting. And the world is going to change because of this. That seems pretty clear. And so that's really interesting to me, how that will, what will happen, and how it will play out, and even what's going, when we get out of our houses, what's going to happen after that, and who knows. But I don't dwell on the negative stuff, because that doesn't make me feel good. So yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at these days right now.
It's wonderful to see where things are now with people, just right now with people, that when everything slowed down, jobs and rushing and everything, how people got a chance to be themselves and open up and express themselves, and there's so much good happening at the moment that it gives rise to hope for the future, really, that we may be seeing something of a shift in humanity that's been coming for a while, perhaps. And it's worth letting that unfold in its own good time, rather than getting caught up in it. You said something to me there a while ago, that we talk about the accumulation of life experience dictating our responses to it now, and to help people who are listening, just as a contextual from one side to the other. Can you speak to, we'll say, what it means, we'll say, as it were, living in the past, through the past experiences now, presently, and the difference between that and, we'll say, living where, as it were, living presently now?
You mean in terms of from what I now know,
Comparatively speaking to, the night and day aspect of it, what it will, how we tend to get caught up in the past, and using the past, like you say, if anxiety for the future
yeah.
is, and so it'll help to create a bit of context in the conversation.
You were blipping out there a little bit, so I didn't catch everything you were saying. But
Just to reiterate,
but yeah,
just to speak, we'll say, to the context between how your thinking formed prior to starting to really see this in comparison to where you are right now. Because, like you see, when
well, I
people
can,
spoke about thought, you didn't, I get what you're saying, but,
right. Right. I mean, I can even just remembering, like, when 9/11 happened here, and that was I mean, that was a long time ago already, long before I knew any of this stuff. And I remember being scared, so scared to death about that. Now, I don't know, maybe maybe that was more scary or something. Um, but I feel very differently now with this. Like, it doesn't, that scaredness, that was very similar situation with the unknown. We didn't know what would happen and stuff, but I felt very paralyzed back then. Not, yeah, just completely different, rather than now, where I feel relatively just curious. It's hard to say because they are different situations, but there's something about it that seems similar. But also, we talked to you and I a little before coming on live, like, the just having, now we're all stuck living with our families, and and stuff, and being, being around other people a lot, that could be, I think in the past that could have been more um
Trying.
anxiety provoking, or whatever. Just, a lot of times being on vacations with family and stuff, sometimes being cooped up, because I do like to be by myself, would be, um I didn't like it as much. But I think when you know that the feelings aren't coming from someone else, that I'm creating my experience, so it means other people around me can't be causing me to feel bad, let's say. Knowing that is really helpful, even when they seem to be causing me to feel bad. Just that knowing it, um, it keeps you more grounded. But the other piece with that I find even more helpful is knowing that other people are experiencing their reality through their thoughts too, and so that's even more helpful. But you have to know it for yourself, that's how the world works, as we would call it, inside out. It's inside out rather than outside in. The other people in our lives can't be making us mad, sad, whatever else, or happy even. But when we know it for ourselves, we can see when they're upset, or they're blaming, or they're doing, the things that they do, the things that we all do. When we know where it's coming from, we don't then take it as personally either.
Yeah.
And we can have more compassion for those people. So it's just a lot easier to get along in general with anyone that we are hanging around with a lot, and more so now, in these times. I imagine there must be a lot of family arguments and things, just with, being stuck together like this, where people aren't used to it as much.
Yeah, it opens up, I think, something that you've really touched on, that's clearly, and I mentioned this to you a while ago, it is becoming a concern in Ireland at the moment. And I imagine if it's here, it's across the world, where they're talking about families being in difficulty at the moment, that, obviously, particularly with women and domestic abuse, and because everybody's cooped up at home, that it's pointing towards, like I was saying, to the novelty of this wearing off. And now that people are at home, they're in each other's companies quite substantially, and now that the holiday feeling of this is over, and reality, or we'll say the old thinking, is coming back up, anxiety is becoming a major issue in relationships. It is becoming an issue. It's clear that it's becoming an issue in relationships. Um, I'd love to hear you speak about that, Jill, because I know you tend to spend a lot of time when you're working with people in helping them improve the quality of their relationships through their own understanding of where their feelings are coming from. We'll say, and you alluded to it earlier on, and it's so beautifully, like when your husband kind of gives you okay, and it happens. Hands up, when a comment comes out, it's the story that turns up with it.
Yeah.
And it's those moments that, when we're in heightened situations at
Yeah.
home and close contact on a regular basis, how little things like that appear to be triggering our anxiety and our emotions around our relationships with those we love dearly.
And that's where, you know, for what I do, most of what I know, what I write about, is based on really looking deeply at my own self, right? Because I'm the only one I can really know, or as much as you can know yourself. And so I find it really interesting to dissect, like, my thoughts and things. Like, if I have an argument, or I think somebody has caused me trouble or whatever, I look at it like, during the time when it happens, it feels it's real. It's supposed to be real. It looks like that other person is causing me grief. But later on, the next day when I feel better or something, I love to kind of be like, all right, how was that me? Because that sure looked like it was them. And And it's really, really interesting when you can do that, because it really is, you find we have all these deep seated beliefs and conditioning, again, that we think is that we don't know. So like here's a example that happened to me. That this isn't that recent, but it was m- we have our mailbox at the end of our driveway, which is a little bit long, but not that not that long. But I don't usually get the mail that often because it's usually junk mail. But my daughter, who lives with us, would take walks often, and she would get the mail. But she was away for a couple of weeks, and so nobody was getting the mail. And my husband, before he was going to work one day, said, "Oh, Jamie's not around. Maybe I should get the mail." And I said, "Oh, I'll get it later." And I got a little defensive about it, because I guess in some belief that it was my job to get the mail, I guess is what I thought. And so he went off to work, and then he messaged me from work and said, "I went and I checked the mail, and the mailman took it, because when the mailbox gets too full, they take it away to the post office." And so I again got totally defensive, and I'm thinking in my head, "Oh, I'm not even going to answer him. Why is he attacking me this way?" You know, just because all he's just telling me the details of what happened. And but I really was feeling completely attacked and blamed somehow, that I was too lazy to get the mail, like as if he said that to me, "You lazy." So you can't even get the mail, which he never said. I don't know if he thought it or not, but it doesn't matter. um but it was after a few hours, like, I finally, like, came to my senses and saw that somehow that it was, I finally messaged him back or something, and asked if they left a thing so I could go to the post office and get it. And then even when I went to the post office, I thought like that the people there were going to be like, "Oh, you couldn't even get your mail." you know and they just give me the bundle of mail. They don't care. But
Yeah.
it's so interesting how we project that all that onto other
Mm.
people. um and we can't help it. It's not bad, it's not wrong, there's nothing we can even do about it. But every time we see something like that, and really see that it's us, not them, and not in a bad way. It wasn't anything bad that
Mhm.
I did to feel that way, but to know that that's just based on some thoughts. That, I mean, I used to always kid that I was lazy. So I mean, to me, that's the thing. Like, "Oh yeah, I'm lazy." Like, I thought that wasn't. I didn't think anything bad. I just think I'm lazy. But I guess seeing it that way, I started, it must be more of a thing than I thought. That that it's like something in me that I actually don't like about myself,
Yeah.
that I must have been projecting on. I didn't realize that it was a big deal to me. So, it's stuff like that that happens all day long. Like, we can come up with examples all day long of how, "Oh, he hurt my feelings. Why is he attacking me?"
Mhm.
It's so interesting to look to ourselves.
You mentioned one of my favorite words that comes up in my own coaching all the time, the word belief. Could you speak to that?
Belief, yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
beliefs, we don't realize how much everything that we our whole world is beliefs. It's all beliefs, and beliefs are just thoughts, as Abraham Hicks says, thoughts that we keep thinking. um it's I see it as, we have thoughts down here, then they become beliefs, kind of like here, and then the beliefs become your identity, which I kind of see as the top. That's our identity. And that's who we think we are, but it's based on beliefs, which are based on thoughts. And so that's why at the beginning, when I said how I totally changed from one person to another, that's how it works. Like, I didn't understand
Mm.
why I could change, but because it's based on beliefs, which are based on thoughts, of course it can change. Thoughts change all the time. And 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 that's why identity is not solid, and beliefs aren't solid either. And to me, I'm almost to the point where I don't even know that there's any truth anymore in life. I think it feels like pretty much most things we think are truth are actually beliefs. You could look at politics. How can this be true on this side and this be true on this side, and how can they both be true? I don't know.
Mhm.
They're not. They're beliefs.
Yeah, based on that accumulated thought, accumulated experience of thought gathering up, and like you say, like Abraham Hicks said, it's just more thinking all of the time. I see it as a challenge that I deal in my own coaching when I see people determined to hold on to something.
Mm.
This is absolutely true. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, it's always a signpost to examine that.
Oh yeah.
A
Yep.
signpost to see, okay, and you said it so beautifully. We're not sure what's true anymore. The only thing we can be sure of is the fact that it's a thought.
Right.
The substance of that thought is nothing.
Right. Nothing.
Is nothing. And it lends to that discussion then about the neutrality of thought.
Mm-hmm.
That all, excuse me, that the thought is continuous. And I would like to hear you speak about this, Jill, if you would, about, and you've mentioned it, that we're thinking all day long, thoughts are moving through all day long. And how is it that we're attached to some and not to others? And to speak to the neutrality of thought.
Yeah. I mean, I see it as thought starts as it's an energy flow. I mean, all of life is just energy, and so as a human being here, I mean, we're energy, but so we get this energy flow that's thought energy, I guess, let's call it. Um, but it hits our own filters, which is our beliefs, which is our
Mm.
identity, which is our beliefs, which is our thoughts. So that energy hits that. So it's neutral to begin with, but it has to then filter through our our conditioning. You can call all that stuff just conditioning. Which again, as I said, is based on everything that's ever happened to us, anything that's ever been said to us, and all our culture, and all that stuff. We don't realize how much culture um, affects, how we were brought up, all these things.
Mhm.
And so the neutral energy turns into whatever based on us. And it's cool because we're like snowflakes. We're all of our mixture of conditioning is unique to us. Like no two people, we have similar stuff and some of it's the same, but the whole mixture, like the recipe all together, is going to create a different person. And that's why
Mhm.
we're all these cool, unique individuals, that's made up of all that. And that's like neat. That's cool to be all different. And yet we're at the bottom of it, we're all the same because we all work the same way. We're the same and we're different. And that's really cool
Yeah,
too.
it is really cool. If I could link just, we'll say, the neutrality of thought and the dissolution of anxiety, the feeling of anxiety, and how the feelings settle through understanding that thoughts don't have to be taken seriously.
Well, I think, yeah, that's where the thoughts, if you start to examine your thoughts, or not even examine, just observe them, you see how they come and go, how they, 1 second they're there, another they're not. And so as we know that more and more, and we know that they're neutral, except based on whatever meaning we happen to give them at that moment, which can be completely different. If we're in a bad mood, the same okay means something different than if we're in a good mood.
Mhm.
And so just knowing that, there's just less anxiety, that just, and it's just not like you do anything. It just you're just less anxious somehow. It's just the magic of it. That's what's
Yeah.
so cool about it. It deletes conditioning, really. That every insight you get deletes a little bit of
Mm.
conditioning that you've had before. That's where the real magic is, in these insights. Like when I saw thoughts create feelings as an insight in a different way than I ever heard it before, just this, like, stuff just poofed away from me. Like the lot of conditioning just disappeared.
Isn't it amazing that when we were talking about earlier on about the conditioning, the past, the words that we use to describe pretty much the same thing in a myriad form, it still is the same thing. Like we say, when we use the word conditioning, that the moment that we see through something, that, like you say, that belief, that conditioning, that life is supposed to be this way, but it's only supposed to be this way because we believe it's supposed to be this way, nothing else.
Yeah.
That the essence of freedom is there, that the opportunity to live a life and go live our life. And it's something that you and I have spoken about that has become more and more apparent to you, and the quality of your life has changed in accordance with, we'll say, how you see this and how you understand this, and has a message of hope to people out there, that are listening today. From where Jill Whalen was to where Jill Whalen is, and how life is, like, what it's like, we'll say, sensory wise, quality wise, feeling wise, and how you're just basically going about living your life now in a much more fulfilling manner. I'd love to hear you speak about that now.
Yeah, I mean, just living life, and when you live life from this knowing, let's call it, or maybe it's a belief too, um, but living life from an inside out perspective rather than an outside in one. You're just different. You give off different vibes, and that alone is helpful to people. Like at first I thought I had to tell everybody about this, that to all my friends and stuff, and they were like, yeah, whatever, that sounds stupid. Go away. And but now I don't really even tell people, but I find people sometimes will start asking me, or they're like, wow, you're really positive, or you're really whatever, and I'm like, oh really? And and I might then start to tell them things, or if they ask me what it is I know, and that's different than feeling. I see that nobody needs to know this. They actually already know it. Like, I've seen that much more too, that deep down we all kind of know this. We all know that we're all the same, and we're all different, and we and so, and when you see people that way, maybe that's the difference, seeing the others as being already whole, and just living through their conditioning. That alone makes them want to be around you more, because other people don't see them that way. Other people think they're out to get them, and all these paranoid things that people do. But somehow, when you're able to just see them more and have more compassion for people, and I mean, I still work on this all the time. I don't see everybody. I still don't quite see everybody that way, but I find just living my life that it's happening more and more. I like to think it is. Less ego, more just love. But I mean, I've got ways to go.
It's the human condition.
Yeah.
It gives us the ability, I suppose, or to give us, when we understand how our thought feeling connection works, in that sense, that it is, as you say, it's inside out. The ability to recover is there really quickly.
Yeah.
To find the middle ground again is really lovely. I suppose, as you say, it's a secret that everybody knows,
Yeah.
but are often very much unaware of. And it happens sometimes when people come across it first, we evangelize because of the impact it has in our lives. And what I saw for myself was what had opened up within me. And you alluded to it so beautifully, like there's a deeper sense of love. Because, I mean, there's something I would love to hear you speak about just before you go, Jill, is we become less judgmental of ourselves and become less judgmental of others.
Mm. That's really what it is about. I mean, I'm also a Course in Miracles student, and I love the way it's black and white with that. It's either we're coming either from fear or love.
Mm.
And when we can look at situations when we don't feel good, then we're coming from fear, not love. Or when we're worried about a situation or about other people, we're coming from fear instead of love. And when every time I am in that space and I'm at the end of my rope and I ask the universe, how can I see this differently? Help me see this differently because I know I'm in fear. Like I get an answer like that. And it's usually the answer is always just love them. It's usually if I'm worried about another person, let's say, just love them. And it's like, whew, like the situation changes and my mind settles. And and then I'm in that space of love again. But it's funny how I forget every time and 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 get caught up until I'm at the end of my rope. But I would like to not have to get to the end of the rope and just be able to do that. But someday.
Welcome to the human race.
Exactly.
It's it is the human condition.
Yeah.
To me, I see it as the balance of both.
Yep. And when we can be in that, when we can
Mm,
really be in that and just love the other person, other people can't be can't be in their own crazy when they're in the presence of that, which is really cool to see as well. But you can't fake it. You can't just be like, okay, no fear, just love. Like you can't fake it. You have to really, you have to fall into it somehow.
yeah, and it points to that what you said a while ago, that we already know this. It's a secret that everybody knows, because everybody knows love.
Yeah.
And it's something that can't be faked.
Yeah.
And as I see it, as I go further into my life, it's become my compass, it's become my north, it's become my true north, as it were, that when I'm in the midst of my own end of rope, or my own depth of humanity, which is perfectly fine, to know that this shall pass. It does pass. That what resides in that is love. And that moment we remind ourselves that this is really just about love.
Hmm. Beautiful.
It does, and when we reside in that, it brings you back to relationships in particular.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier on, we were talking before, everything is about relationships. Relationships to ourselves, to our friends, our family, our children, our parents, our colleagues, our work, our experiences of life. It is about the relationships that we have, beginning with the relationship we have within ourselves.
Yep.
And I see that as, as in that moment that we get anxious with our partners, and in this close confines of time, it tends to be about that. And to remind ourselves of that love, of ourselves, just to begin with ourselves. And rather than making the mistake, like you did and like I did and like everybody, tried to fix somebody else to make us feel well.
Yeah.
It is a trap we all fall into.
Yep. And
And
we keep will over and over.
yeah, and it serves to remind us that if we begin with loving ourselves, begin with our own relationship, and I suppose when we're in the depth of anxiety and worry and fear, and we forget that. It's so easy to forget it because the feelings are so
It's real
overwhelming.
then.
It
Yeah.
becomes real then.
Yep.
And I appreciate how you've spoken to it, in its real and in its practical terms, because of the impact of it when people know that there's something beyond anxiety, but it isn't something that's have to be pulled down from other people or other places, that the actual solution or the relief or and the upspring of love is to see through thought, see through the illusion of where we think our feelings are coming from, is very, very helpful.
That's the bottom line.
It is the
Yeah.
bottom line. Jill, I'm conscious of the
And
time.
I need to get.
I could be chatting with you all day. I really appreciate you taking the time out. It's dropped into a lovely, lovely, lovely finish to this
Yeah,
conversation.
thank
I
you so
really,
much for
really
having me.
appreciate it. Jill, if people want to reach out to you or get in contact with you, or how would they find you? How will they find you?
They can find me on Facebook pretty easily. To search my name, or whatdidyoudowithjill.com.
And they can reach out to you there.
Yep.
And just give your book a plug while you're there.
Yep, the book is Victim of Thought, Seen Through the Illusion of Anxiety. And eventually, if I can get finished with it, we'll have another one out about relationships at some point.
Excellent. Jill, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Much love
Thank
to you.
you.
And to everybody, thank you all for joining in via YouTube or Facebook, or however you're consuming this evening. We apologize about the breakdown in technology. Sometimes things are outside of our beautiful metaphor. Things are just outside of our experience that we can't do anything about. So we may as well make do a beautiful metaphor. Jill, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.